Once upon a time, in a bustling city filled with towering skyscrapers and endless opportunities, there lived a man named Eric. He was no ordinary man, he was a billionaire with more money than he could ever spend. His mansion stood grandly on a hill overlooking the city, surrounded by lush gardens and guarded by state-of-the-art security systems. Inside, luxury reigned supreme, fancy cars lined the garage, priceless artwork adorned the walls, and servants catered to his every need. But despite all this opulence, Eric felt an emptiness gnawing at his soul. For all his wealth, he lacked something precious, a genuine love. Over the years, he had been in countless relationships, but none of them lasted. Each woman seemed drawn not to him, but to his riches. They smiled when he bought them expensive gifts, laughed at his jokes when he splurged on lavish dinners, and faded away when they realized he wasn't just another rich playboy. Eric longed for someone who would see past his bank account and into his heart. Someone who would love him for who he truly was, not what he owned. But the more he searched, the lonelier he became. Every night, as he gazed out of his bedroom window at the glittering lights of the city below, he wondered if such a person even existed. One evening, while sitting alone in his study, sipping whiskey and staring into the fire, Eric came up with an idea so daring it almost made him laugh. What if he left behind his luxurious life? What if he disguised himself as a poor, crippled beggar and traveled to a place where no one knew him? If he could meet someone who cared for him despite, or perhaps because of his apparent poverty, then maybe, just maybe, that person might truly love him. The thought excited him, yet it also terrified him. Would anyone believe his disguise? Could he really give up the comforts of his privileged life? And most importantly, was he willing to risk everything for the chance at real love? Determined to take the leap, Eric shared his plan with his parents. His mother, a well-known businesswoman, and his father, a powerful politician, were horrified. Eric, his father said sternly, his voice filled with concern, you could be recognized. What if someone dangerous finds out who you are? You could be kidnapped or harmed. I'll be careful, Eric reassured them. I'm going far away, to a place where no one knows me. Please trust me, I have to do this. His mind was made up. With their reluctant blessing, Eric packed a small bag containing only essentials, torn clothes, a fake wheelchair, and a few coins to make his act believable. Leaving behind the mansion, the cars, and the life he once cherished, he boarded a bus bound for a quiet village nestled deep within the countryside. As the bus rattled along winding roads, Eric looked out the window at the rolling hills and green fields stretching endlessly before him. For the first time in years, he felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps, in this humble village, he would finally find the love he had been searching for all his life. For days, Eric sat on the street corner, dressed in tattered clothes and seated in a wheelchair. His hand outstretched, he whispered softly, "Please help me." Yet most people passing by didn't even glance at him. Some gave him quick, dismissive looks before hurrying away. For the first time in his life, Eric felt truly invisible. Despite his resolve, loneliness gnawed at him once again. Was this what it meant to be poor? To go unnoticed? But then one day, everything changed. A young woman named Destiny walked past Eric's spot. She was different from the rest, kind eyes, a gentle spirit, and an aura of warmth that seemed to light up the street. Though her family was poor, working hard on their small farm to make ends meet, Destiny always found a way to smile. When she noticed Eric sitting there, looking tired and hungry, her heart softened. She stopped and bent down, meeting his gaze. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice full of concern. Eric was taken aback. It had been days since anyone had spoken to him directly. "I'm just trying to get by," he replied, forcing his voice to sound weak. Destiny looked into her small purse, realizing she didn't have much money left. But she couldn't walk away without helping. "Here," she said, handing him a few coins. "I know it's not much, but it's all I have right now." Tears welled up in Eric's throat. No amount of wealth had ever touched him like this act of kindness did. "Thank you," he whispered. "You don't know how much this means to me." Destiny smiled softly. "Do you have a place to stay?" Eric shook his head guiltily. "No, I don't." Destiny thought for a moment. Her father, Roland, worked tirelessly on their farm, and their house was small. Still, she wanted to help. "I'll ask my father if we can let you stay with us," she offered. Back home, Destiny approached her father, Roland, a man whose face carried years of labor but also immense kindness. "Father, I met someone today," a man sitting on the street in a wheelchair. He looked so tired and hungry, she began hesitantly. "I gave him some of the little money I had left, but he told me he has no place to stay." Roland listened carefully, his eyes softening. "What did you do, Destiny?" "I gave him what I could, but I wasn't sure if bringing him here would be the right thing to do," she admitted. Roland sighed deeply, considering the situation. "No one should be left to suffer when we have a roof over our heads," he finally said. "Go back and bring him here. We'll make room for him." With gratitude swelling in her heart, Destiny hurried back to the street corner where she had left Eric. As she approached, her soft voice cut through the evening air. "My father said you can't stay out here alone tonight. Come with me, we'll give you a place to sleep." Eric blinked in surprise, overwhelmed by the unexpected kindness. I don't know what to say," he stammered. "You don't have to say anything," Destiny replied with a kind smile. "Just let us help you." Under Destiny's assistance, Eric made his way back to her humble home. Crossing the threshold, he felt a sense of warmth and safety he hadn't experienced in years. Despite having so little, Destiny and Roland were willing to share what they had with a stranger. As Eric settled into the modest room they prepared for him, he realized that perhaps, just perhaps, he had finally found what he was looking for. That night, as he lay on the thin mattress, listening to the sounds of crickets chirping outside, Eric felt safe for the first time in a long while. Destiny brought him a bowl of warm soup, which he savored with each sip. Sitting on the edge of the bed, she spoke kindly. "You can stay as long as you need. We want to help you." "Thank you," Eric replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "You don't know how much this means to me." Over the next few days, Destiny and Roland took care of Eric, helping him with his daily needs. They even created a small garden where he could sit during the day. Eric enjoyed spending time with Destiny, finding her funny, smart, and genuinely caring. For the first time in years, he laughed more than he cried. One evening, as they sat together in the garden, Destiny looked at him with concern. "You seem sad sometimes," she said gently. "Is there something on your mind?" Eric wanted to share everything with her, to tell her about his real life, his wealth, and the reasons behind his disguise. But he held back, fearing how she might react. "I've just been through a lot," he forced himself to smile. "I'm grateful to be here." Destiny nodded, sensing there was more to his story. But for now, she respected his silence. As the days turned into weeks, Eric grew closer to Destiny and her family. Yet, deep inside, a growing sense of guilt gnawed at him. How could he enjoy this happiness while hiding who he really was? The house was silent, heavy with the weight of Eric's confession. Roland stood frozen, disbelief etched onto his face as he absorbed the truth that the man he had trusted, cared for, and even sacrificed for was not who he claimed to be. Without saying a word, Roland stormed out of the house, unable to bear the betrayal any longer. He walked to a quiet corner of the yard, sinking to his knees under the cover of darkness. Tears filled his eyes as he thought about all that had been lost, their family's land, their last connection to their ancestors, all given up for someone who never needed their help. Destiny entered the house moments later, searching for answers. She found Eric sitting there, guilt written plainly across his features. "What happened?" she demanded, her voice trembling with emotion. Eric hesitated, then confessed everything, his wealth, his plan, and the lies he had woven in pursuit of genuine love. Destiny listened, her heart pounding with disbelief and rage. All this time, she and her father had worked tirelessly, sacrificing what little they had, believing Eric was in desperate need. How could he have deceived them so cruelly? Tears welled up in her eyes as anger surged through her body. "How dare you?" she exclaimed, her voice shaking. "You made us suffer, knowing we were giving everything for someone who didn't need our help." Her words cut like knives, each accusation piercing deeper into Eric's already shattered conscience. "I never meant to hurt you," Eric pleaded, desperation coloring his tone. "I wanted to find true love, to escape the woman who only cared about my money. I thought if I pretended to be poor, I'd know if someone loved me for who I really am." But Destiny couldn't listen anymore. The weight of what had happened was too much to bear. She turned away, tears streaming down her face, and retreated to her room. Alone, she cried herself to sleep, mourning not just the betrayal but the hope she had begun to nurture, that maybe, just maybe, Eric could have been the one. Outside, Roland remained lost in his own sorrow. This man whom he had welcomed into their home, whom he had come to care for deeply, had betrayed them utterly. The land he had sold, the sacrifices he had made, it all felt meaningless now. Trust broken cannot easily be mended, and Roland wondered if it ever would. Meanwhile, whispers spread through the village like wildfire. By morning, everyone knew the truth: the crippled beggar they had pitied for months was actually a billionaire. Some villagers stared in disbelief, while others shook their heads in pity for Roland and Destiny. Judah, upon hearing the news, realized his chances with Destiny were over. How could he compete with a man of such immense wealth? Defeated, he sought comfort elsewhere, turning to Sophia in hopes of salvaging some semblance of pride. Inside the small house, Eric sat alone, overwhelmed by regret. He had come to the village seeking love, but instead, he had destroyed the very relationships he cherished most. Guilt gnawed at him as he replayed every moment of his deception in his mind. Had his desire for authenticity blinded him to the harm he caused? Now, facing the consequences of his actions, Eric wondered if there was any way to repair the damage, or if he had truly lost everything. As dawn broke over the village, Eric resolved to try once more to make things right. But deep down, he feared it might already be too late. Eric sat alone in the quiet solitude of Destiny's home, reflecting on the love he had found and nearly lost. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of peace, not because of wealth or power, but because of genuine connection. Yet, as dawn broke over the small village, so did the reality of his father's looming influence. Back in the city, Eric's father stormed into their mansion, his face dark with anger upon learning from his wife that Eric had returned to the village. "He can't defy me like this," he bellowed, pacing furiously across the living room. "I've worked too hard for him to ruin everything now." Eric's mother tried to calm him, placing a gentle hand on his arm. "Please, dear," she pleaded softly, though her voice betrayed her own worry. "You must understand how much Destiny means to him." Her words only fueled his rage. "I don't care who she is. This isn't about love, it's about our family's future. Without Chief Timothy's support, I have no chance at the governorship. And without securing that position, all we've built will crumble." That night, Eric's father made a decision. He would send his men to the village to bring Eric back by force if necessary. His plans were clear: Eric would marry Chief Timothy's daughter, whether he liked it or not. No one, not even his own son, would stand in the way of his ambition. Meanwhile, Eric was unaware of the storm brewing in the city. Filled with newfound hope, he told Destiny about bringing her and Roland to the city. They agreed to go, trusting Eric's promise of safety and support. Roland, touched by the kindness of Eric's family, accepted the offer graciously, grateful for the opportunity to provide a better life for himself and his daughter. When they arrived in the city, Eric's father greeted Roland with feigned warmth. Sitting Roland down in his study, he presented gifts: a house, a business, and assurances of prosperity. However, his intentions soon revealed themselves. In private, Eric's father confronted Destiny, warning her to stay away from his son. If she refused, he threatened dire consequences, his cold tone leaving no room for doubt. Fear gripped Destiny as she listened to the chilling threats. Shaking, she called Eric immediately, tears streaming down her face as she recounted the encounter. Upon hearing the news, Eric flew into a rage. How dare his father interfere once more? He confronted his father directly, standing firm in his resolve to choose love over politics. "I'll never marry Chief Timothy's daughter," Eric declared, looking his father straight in the eye. To drive the point home, he lied, claiming that Destiny was already pregnant with his child. The revelation struck Chief Timothy like a blow, shattering the alliance Eric's father desperately needed. Furious, Chief Timothy severed ties with the family, dashing any hopes of victory in the upcoming election. Defeated and enraged, Eric's father turned his wrath toward his son. "This is your fault," he roared, slamming his fist against the desk. "You've ruined everything." But Eric stood resolute, unyielding in the face of his father's fury. "For once, I'm doing what's right for me," he said calmly, though his heart pounded with emotion. "If you can't accept that, then maybe we're not meant to be part of each other's lives." The tension between them reached its peak. Eric's father seethed, consumed by bitterness and regret. He had sacrificed everything for power, yet now it seemed he had lost far more than just an election. He might lose his only son forever. As days passed, the weight of their conflict settled heavily over the household. Eric's mother watched helplessly, torn between her husband's ambitions and her son's happiness. She knew the truth: true love could not be bought, nor could the bonds of family withstand unchecked greed. But could she bridge the chasm between them before it was too late? With the election drawing near, Eric prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead. Though uncertainty clouded his path, one thing remained certain: he would fight to protect the love he had found in Destiny and the respect he owed Roland. Love, after all, was worth every battle. The hospital room was quiet, save for the rhythmic beeping of medical equipment monitoring Roland's fragile state. Destiny sat by her father's bedside, tears streaming down her face as she clutched his hand tightly. Her world had been turned upside down once more, this time by an act of violence so cruel it left her heart shattered. Roland lay unconscious, bruised and battered, a victim of Eric's father's relentless ambition. When Eric arrived at the hospital later that evening, his breath caught in his throat at the sight of Roland lying there, barely clinging to life. This was the man who had welcomed him into his home without judgment, who had cared for him despite knowing nothing of his true identity. Seeing Roland like this broke something inside Eric. A deep anger surged through him, fueled by guilt and sorrow. Destiny looked up when Eric entered the room, her eyes red from crying. She managed a weak smile, though her voice trembled. "Is everything okay?" she asked softly. Eric nodded, his jaw clenched. "I made sure my father won't hurt your family again," he said firmly. "I promise you're safe now." But as he sat beside her, taking her other hand in his, Eric knew the battle was far from over. The damage done couldn't be undone with mere words or promises. Still, they held each other close, finding solace in their shared love amidst the chaos. Back at the mansion, Eric seethed with fury. That night, after leaving the hospital, he stormed into his study, opening the drawer where he kept a gun. For the first time in his life, Eric felt ready to stand up to his father, no matter the cost. He marched downstairs to his father's study, where the older man sat brooding over his election loss, nursing a glass of whiskey. The door burst open, startling his father. Eric stood in the doorway, his face darkened with anger, the gun steady in his hand. His father froze, shock etched onto his features. He had never seen Eric like this, his usually obedient, respectful son now threatening him with deadly seriousness. "If Roland dies," Eric growled, his voice cold and steady, "then you will die too." For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. His father sat frozen, unable to speak. The weight of Eric's words hit him hard. This wasn't a joke, Eric wasn't bluffing. There was a fierce determination in his son's eyes, a rage his father had never imagined could exist within him. "You've done enough," Eric continued, his voice cutting through the tension. "Because of you, an innocent man is lying in the hospital fighting for his life, all because of your greed, your need for control. If he doesn't make it, I swear you'll pay for it with your own life." Tears welled up in his father's eyes, something Eric had never witnessed before. Slowly, the old man lowered his head, shame washing over him. For the first time, Eric's father realized how far he had pushed, how much damage his ambition had caused. He had always believed he was doing what was best for his family, but now, looking at the anger and pain on his son's face, he saw the truth: he had broken something irreparably. "I'm sorry," his father whispered, his voice trembling. "I didn't mean for things to go this far. I didn't want anyone to get hurt. I just wanted you to have the life I thought was best for you." But Eric wasn't moved. Years of disappointment clouded his ability to trust his father's sudden change of heart. Still, he listened as his father pleaded, raising his hands in surrender. "I'll fix this. I promise. I'll call off my men, and I'll ensure Roland gets the best care possible. I'll make things right." Eric's face remained hard, but he could see the sincerity, or perhaps the desperation, in his father's expression. Lowering the gun slightly, he spoke, his voice still cold. "Fixing this won't bring back the trust you've broken. You can't undo what you've done." His father nodded slowly, understanding the gravity of his mistakes. "I know," he whispered. "But I'll try. I'll do whatever it takes." Reluctantly, Eric placed the gun down on the table between them. His father let out a shaky breath, relief flooding through him. But Eric wasn't done yet. "If anything happens to Destiny's father," he warned, his tone unwavering, "I'll never forgive you. And I will never come back." With that, Eric turned and walked out of the room, leaving his father sitting there in silence, overwhelmed by guilt and regret. For the first time, the weight of his actions truly hit him. He had nearly lost his only son, and worse, he had caused harm to a family that had shown kindness to Eric when no one else would. As Eric stepped outside into the cool night air, a storm of emotions raged within him. Part of him wanted to believe his father's promises, but years of betrayal made trust impossible. One thing was certain: he had to protect Destiny and her father. They were the only people who had ever treated him like a real person, not a trophy or a symbol of wealth. Determined, Eric returned to the hospital, seeking comfort in Destiny's presence. Together, they faced the uncertainty ahead, drawing strength from their love and resolve. Though challenges loomed large, they knew they had each other, and somehow, that gave them hope. Days turned into weeks as Roland lay in the hospital bed, fighting for recovery. The doctors were cautiously optimistic. Despite the severity of his injuries, Roland showed signs of improvement. Each day, Destiny sat by his bedside, holding his hand tightly, praying for his strength to return. Eric joined her often, his guilt gnawing at him like a relentless storm. He couldn't help but blame himself for everything that had happened: Roland's suffering, Destiny's pain, and the strain on their relationship. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the city, Eric approached Destiny. Her face was pale, exhaustion etched into every line. "How is he?" Eric asked softly, taking a seat beside her. Destiny glanced up, her eyes red from crying. "He's getting better," she replied, forcing a small smile. "The doctors say he might walk again if he keeps improving." Eric nodded, relief washing over him briefly before guilt resurfaced. "I'm so sorry for all of this," he whispered, reaching out to take her hand. "If it weren't for me." "No," Destiny interrupted firmly, squeezing his hand. "This wasn't your fault. It was your father's greed and cruelty. You didn't ask for any of this." Her words brought tears to Eric's eyes. She still believed in him, even after everything. That thought both humbled and terrified him. Could he truly deserve someone as kind and understanding as Destiny? As the days passed, Eric threw himself into helping Roland recover. He hired the best physical therapists, paid for cutting-edge treatments, and ensured Roland received everything he needed to regain his health. Slowly but surely, Roland began to heal, his spirit unbroken despite the ordeal. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, Eric's mother worked tirelessly to mend the fractured relationships within the family. She knew her husband's actions had gone too far, and the time had come for him to confront his mistakes. One afternoon, she sat her husband down in the study, her voice firm yet gentle. "You need to fix this," she told him, her eyes filled with urgency. "You've hurt not just Eric, but an entire family who did nothing but show kindness. If you don't make amends now, you'll lose more than just the election, you'll lose our son forever." Her words struck a chord deep within Eric's father. For years, he had prioritized power and control, ignoring the emotional toll his decisions took on those around him. Now, staring at his wife's determined face, he realized how much damage his ambition had caused. Perhaps it wasn't too late to change, to be the man his family deserved. The next morning, Eric's father arrived at the hospital, carrying the weight of regret on his shoulders. As he entered Roland's room, the air felt heavy with tension. Destiny sat by her father's bedside, while Eric stood near the window, his back turned. Roland, though still weak, managed a small smile when he saw Eric's father. "I'm sorry, Roland," Eric's father began, his voice low and sincere. "I've made terrible mistakes. I let my ambition blind me, and I hurt you and your family. I'm not proud of what I've done, but I want to make things right." Roland hesitated, then spoke quietly. "Life is short. There's no room for grudges. What matters now is making sure my daughter is happy, and that your son is happy, too." Eric's father, moved by Roland's humility and forgiveness, promised himself that he would do whatever it took to help this family from now on. He arranged for additional care for Roland, ensuring his recovery progressed smoothly. He also reached out to Destiny, offering her support in whatever way she needed. Though mistrust lingered, Eric's father's genuine efforts began to soften some of the resentment. Back in the village, changes were unfolding as well. Sophia, once proud and boastful, found herself humbled by circumstances beyond her control. Tricked by Judah's scheme, she ended up pregnant and trapped in a miserable marriage to a poor mechanic. Living in a rundown shack, surrounded by grease and noise instead of luxury, Sophia cried for days, realizing the error of her ways. Her greed and jealousy had cost her dearly, leaving her isolated and broken. When Destiny encountered Sophia during a routine checkup, she recognized the woman sitting by the roadside, eating bread and looking utterly defeated. Despite their past conflicts, Destiny felt pity for her former friend. Before leaving, she handed Sophia a generous check, encouraging her to start anew. Sophia, overwhelmed with gratitude, thanked Destiny repeatedly, vowing to turn her life around. With Roland recovering and peace slowly returning to their lives, Eric and Destiny focused on building a future together. They discussed plans for their wedding, envisioning a simple ceremony filled with love and joy. Eric's mother embraced Destiny fully, seeing the profound impact she had on her son's happiness. Together, they prepared for the next chapter of their lives, hopeful and united in their commitment to one another. Though shadows of the past remained, Eric knew he had found something precious, a love worth protecting, a family worth cherishing. And as he held Destiny's hand under the warm sunlight, he vowed never to take her kindness or devotion for granted again. Days turned into weeks as Roland recuperated in the hospital. The doctors were optimistic about his progress, though it was clear he had a long road ahead of him. Each day, Eric visited alongside Destiny, offering support and ensuring Roland received the best care possible. In their quiet moments together, Eric and Destiny spoke of their future, a life filled with love, laughter, and mutual respect. For the first time, Eric felt at peace, knowing he had found someone who truly cared for him. But not everyone shared in their happiness. Back in the city, Eric's father seethed with anger over his election loss and the betrayal by Chief Timothy. His dreams of power crushed, he directed his rage toward those he blamed for his downfall, Destiny and her family. Determined to reclaim control, he sent his men to deliver a chilling message: stay away from Eric or face dire consequences. One evening, as Destiny returned home from the market, she encountered two strangers lurking near her house. Their presence made her uneasy, but she brushed off her fears until they approached her directly. One of them sneered, "Your kind doesn't belong with someone like Eric." Before she could respond, they left, leaving her shaken and afraid. Fearing for her safety, and Roland's, Destiny rushed to tell Eric what had happened. Her voice trembled as she recounted the encounter. Eric clenched his fists in anger, guilt flooding through him. He had hoped his father would honor his promise to leave them alone, but clearly, old habits died hard. "I won't let him hurt you," Eric vowed, pulling Destiny close. "We'll figure this out together." The next morning, Eric decided to confront his father once more. Armed with resolve, he stormed into the mansion, demanding answers. When his father dismissed the accusations, claiming ignorance, Eric saw right through the lie. "You think money can fix everything?" Eric snapped. "Well, try buying back my trust." His father's expression darkened. "This is your fault," he shot back. "If you hadn't defied me, none of this would have happened." Eric shook his head, refusing to be swayed. "No, father. This is about power and control. You've always put ambition before people. But I've learned something important here: love isn't something you can buy or force. It has to come from the heart." Though his words fell on deaf ears, Eric knew he had done all he could. Returning to the hospital, he found Roland sitting up in bed, looking stronger than ever. Seeing Eric enter, Roland smiled warmly. "Son," he said, using the affectionate term for the first time, "you've given us so much. We owe you everything." Eric shook his head, humbled by Roland's gratitude. "It's you who've shown me what real love looks like," he replied softly. "Without your kindness, I'd still be lost." Meanwhile, in another corner of the city, Sophia struggled with the weight of her choices. Pregnant and trapped in a miserable marriage, she wept daily, regretting how far her greed had taken her. One afternoon, while sitting by the roadside eating stale bread, she caught sight of a familiar face driving past, Destiny. Sophia froze, recognizing the glow of happiness radiating from her former friend. Overwhelmed with emotion, she called out, hoping Destiny might stop. To her surprise, Destiny did just that, stepping out of her car with kindness in her eyes despite their history. As Sophia poured out her story, her betrayal by Judah, her pregnancy, and her desperate circumstances, Destiny listened without judgment. When Sophia finished, tears streaming down her face, Destiny handed her a generous check. "Use this to start anew," she said gently. "Everyone deserves a second chance." Touched beyond words, Sophia thanked her repeatedly, vowing to turn her life around. As Destiny drove away, she felt a sense of fulfillment, not because of the money she gave, but because of the compassion she showed. Love, she realized, wasn't about revenge or pride, it was about extending grace even when undeserved. Back at the hospital, Eric and Destiny spent the evening talking about their plans for the future. They dreamed of building a home together, raising a family, and creating a life rooted in kindness and understanding. Though challenges loomed ahead, neither feared them anymore. Together, they had faced adversity and emerged stronger. That night, as Roland slept peacefully, Eric turned to Destiny and whispered, "I almost lost you because of my lies. But now, I know one thing for sure, you're worth every fight." Destiny smiled, her heart swelling with love. "And you're worth every risk." As dawn broke over the horizon, the couple stood hand in hand, ready to face whatever lay ahead. True love, they understood, wasn't perfect, it required effort, sacrifice, and courage. But it was also the most rewarding journey either of them had ever embarked upon. The hospital room was filled with a sense of quiet hope as Roland continued his recovery. Though still weak, his spirit remained unbroken, buoyed by the love and care of those around him. Each day brought new progress, and soon, Roland was able to sit up and even walk short distances with assistance. For Eric, watching Roland heal was a bittersweet experience, a reminder of the harm caused by his father's greed, but also a testament to the resilience of the human heart. Back at the mansion, Eric's father grappled with the weight of his mistakes. The election laws had shattered his dreams of power, but it had also opened his eyes to something far more important, the value of family. Determined to make amends, he poured all his resources into ensuring Roland received the best medical care possible. He visited the hospital regularly, bringing gifts and offering apologies, not just to Roland, but to Destiny as well. One afternoon, as Roland rested, Eric's father sat beside Destiny, his voice soft with sincerity. "I know I've done terrible things," he admitted, meeting her gaze. "But I want you to know that I truly regret what happened. I'll do everything in my power to ensure your family is taken care of." Destiny listened carefully, sensing the genuine remorse in his words. Though she couldn't forget the pain he had caused, she decided to give him a chance. "We've suffered because of your choices," she replied evenly. "But if you're sincere about making things right, we'll accept your help." Encouraged by this small victory, Eric's father redoubled his efforts. He arranged for physical therapy sessions tailored to Roland's needs and ensured the family's home in the city was fully equipped to support them. Slowly but surely, trust began to rebuild between them. Meanwhile, Eric and Destiny focused on planning their wedding. It was a modest affair, reflecting their values of simplicity and authenticity. Friends and neighbors from the village joined them, celebrating the union of two souls who had overcome so much to find each other. Even Eric's mother attended, beaming with pride as she watched her son exchange vows with the woman he loved. In that moment, surrounded by laughter and joy, Eric felt a peace he had never known before. Yet not everyone found happiness so easily. Sophia, now 6 months pregnant and trapped in a miserable marriage, struggled daily with regret. Her life in the city was far from the luxurious dream she had imagined, leaving her isolated and broken. One day, while sitting by the roadside eating stale bread, she encountered an unexpected visitor, Destiny. Recognizing Sophia immediately, Destiny approached her former friend with kindness. Despite their past conflicts, she saw the pain in Sophia's eyes and knew she needed help. Pulling out her checkbook, Destiny wrote a generous amount and handed it to Sophia. "Use this to start anew," she said gently. "You deserve a second chance." Overwhelmed with gratitude, Sophia broke down in tears. For the first time, she understood the depth of her mistakes and the importance of humility. With Destiny's support, she vowed to turn her life around, using the money to build a better future for herself and her unborn child. As the weeks passed, Eric's father worked tirelessly to mend fences within his family. He learned to let go of his obsession with power, focusing instead on nurturing meaningful relationships. Though tensions lingered, there was a newfound respect between him and Eric, one built on mutual understanding rather than control. On the day of their wedding anniversary, Eric reflected on how far they had come. Standing on their balcony overlooking the city skyline, he turned to Destiny and smiled. "I almost lost you because of my lies," he confessed. "But somehow, we found our way back to each other. You've shown me what real love looks like, and I'll spend the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of it." Destiny leaned into him, her heart full of warmth. "We've both made mistakes," she replied softly. "But love isn't perfect, it's about growing together, no matter what comes our way." Together, they looked toward the horizon, hopeful for the future. Their journey had been fraught with challenges, but through perseverance, kindness, and forgiveness, they had built a love worth fighting for. And as the sun set over the city, they knew one thing for certain: true happiness wasn't found in wealth or status, it was rooted in the connections they cherished most.